Hey guys, this is Hetu and welcome back to etlqalabs. So in this video, we will look at very important topic in testing that is related to when you raise a bug, we need to assign these two fields basically. One is severity and other one is priority, right? So this severity and priority is part of your bug or defect that you find out while you perform the testing, right? So how do we decide what is severity and what is priority, guys? So we will look at everything around severity and priority in this session. And I will take the real-time example from the ETL testing point of view. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the generic or manual testing. I will take very specific examples from the ETL point of view, ETL testing point of view, then it will be really make sense, because when you go for interview for ETL testing, you should actually not explain the severity and priority from the manual testing point of view. You should always stick to your ETL testing, and then hence interview will really get impressed, because he or she will understand that you really are working into into ETL testing, and you know that what how do we decide the severity and priority, right? So let's start then, guys, with we'll try to understand. I'm going to make a little table here. I will explain you. Don't worry for now, yeah. But for now, let's start. What is severity and what is priority first of all, right? So severity. So when, as I said, that when we raise a bug, we have to put the severity and priority, guys, right? So what is severity? Let's try to understand first what is severity and priority, and then after that we will look at that, right? So severity is basically, in layman language, what is severity? I mean, what is severe, right? So if you say something, the this is really severe issue, right? Or you say that this is really severe. Severe means basically how bad it is, right? How bad basically, right? That is the severe, okay? Or we can also say that impact. Bad means impact on application, or impact on the software, right? Or impact on your ETL job, whatever, right? So it's basically how bad it is, that is called severity. So we have to define if some bug or some defect is really, really how bad it is. Based on that, we have to decide whether it is high critical. I mean, basically it is a critical or major, minor, low, right? We will look at all of them, right? So when we talk about severity, we have to understand that how bad this particular bug is, and based on that we have to assign it. uh, you know like we have normally we have four category for each of the bug basically. So first one is critical, second one is major and minor, and then fourth one is low, right? So it's like if critical means it is very high impact, it is having very high impact on application of the job. Major means okay, it is little lower than critical. Minor is okay, even lower than that, and low is something like it is a bug, but it is not something that is impacting, right? Okay, so these are the four different category of severity, guys. Okay, we'll try to understand, okay, later point of time, the different kind of example for each of these categories. But for now, just know that there are four different category of severity. I mean, some companies will decide five, or some will decide also three, okay, but usually there are the four different category, okay. So that's what we have explained it here. And for in shortcut, we also say it S1, S2, S3, S4. S3, S1 is basically most of the companies will say that S1 is like critical, right? And S4, as we go like S2, S3, S4, the severity becomes lower and lower. Yeah. So we will try to understand, guys, but for now you understand this is impact on the application, or how bad this bug is, like that is severity, right? Okay. Now second one we will try to understand is the priority. So priority means what, guys? In layman language, if you look at it, priority is basically uh, what is the, importance of it, right? Importance. What is importance, right? Importance or urgency, right? Is it priority? It is urgency or not? Urgency, right? So, which means that in context of bug, a defect, the severity is basically it is how bad this particular bug is, and priority is something how fast we want to actually fix this, right? So what is the importance of this bug, whether we need to fix it faster or we can live with that for some time, etc. Right? So this is defined as, these are the four different category for that: immediate, high, medium, low. Okay. So immediate means it is something that it's blocked everything. You cannot really move ahead with any kind of testing, right? Uh, and hence, because it is critical, right? It is critical means everything has failed, nothing is happening, which means it needs immediate attention, guys. Okay. It's not that only critical defect will need the immediate attention. We will look at all the different kind of, severity and priority. This is the matrix basically, okay? So we will look at all of them. But for now, you understand that, P1 is basically immediate. We need to fix it immediately. Otherwise, we cannot progress with further testing, right? Second one is a high. High means, okay, we need to fix it, but not basically immediately. Okay, we can still progress with some sort of testing, but still, partially, basically partially blocked, right? Medium is something that there are some functionality which are not working, but most of the functionalities are working. So in that case, we need to fix it basically. Medium is basically we can still wait for a week or whatever, right? So it based on, again I don't want to give any timeline, but it is something like, um, logically, the medium priority means it can still wait, right? And the low is something that if time permits, right? If time doesn't permit, then you can live with that bug, right? And then priority low is okay, kind of, right? So urgency, guys, right? Priority is urgency. How urgent it is to bug. This bug is to be fixed. So it's basically starting from P1 to P4, right? So P1 is the highest one, which means it needs immediate. It is highest priority. It needs immediate attention. And P4 is the low one, right? Similarly, here severity, as I say, critical is the one, S1, and S4 is the low one. Okay. Now guys, hopefully you are able to understand it, and now we will look at the example of each of this so that it will be very very clear to you. Okay. Now guys, so the first question that interviewer will ask you, what is severity and what is priority? Once you explain them about the severity and priority, what is that in terms of bug, then they might ask you what is, can you give the example of, give me example of, let's say, P1 and S1 means high, immediate priority and critical severity, something like that. So guys, it's not like that everywhere they will be calling as a critical. Some places they might call as a blocker also here. Okay. So, but roughly, I just want to tell you that, critical is also a blocker. So some companies will refer that particular state as a blocker, not the critical, right? And instead of immediate, that might they might say that it's again it's urgent or critical, whatever, right? But you understand the concept, guys. Okay. So this is being the top, and here the severity critical is the top. Okay. So now what we will try to understand, let's say the second question that interviewer might ask you, try to understand you whether you really understand it or not. So ask you, can you explain me the high or the immediate priority and critical severity? That example. Sorry, guys. Yeah. So for that, guys, what is, so here you see that critical, right? Critical means you need to understand now. Okay. Severity critical, which means nothing is working, everything is stopped, and you cannot really progress with any kind of testing. You have to actually stop whole of your testing. That is the kind of bug which are basically called as a critical bug. Okay. I hope you understand, right? So, and which needs immediate attention, guys. Okay, so this particular you cannot proceed further. You cannot proceed further, so it needs immediate attention, guys, right? We need to fix it immediately. Okay, so those category of defects are something like, let's say you are actually running a job, but all of a sudden the database is down, right? Which means if database is down, you cannot even run the ETL job and load the data in the database, and also you cannot basically run any kind of SQL query to perform any kind of testing, right? So this is something, the category is P1 and S1, right? P1 is priority and S1 is severity, critical, right? So database runs out of space. Okay. So basically, I would say that it's not entire database is down, but we can say that the database where it's giving you error, right? It's ran out of space, right? Which means your job will be failing because it's not allowing any further data to be updated, right, in the database after job running, right? So this is kind of scenario, or this is kind of bug which you will always consider at priority immediate and severity critical. All right, because we need immediately fix it, otherwise there is nothing you can do, right? You cannot do any testing, right? And why it is critical? Because it is actually down, right? All right, now second one is critical means something is not working, right? That is the critical, guys. Okay, so let's say critical is the severity and then high is the priority, P2, right? So what kind of defect you might see, I mean this kind of issues. So guys, this okay, so this one is kind of ran out of space for permanently, but there are certain issues. Okay, there are certain, sometime what happens, the database runs out of space for temporary, for some time only. Okay, and this doesn't happen very frequently. Let's say once in a month or something, if it is happening, then you can say that this is critical because actually your testing is halted, but then this is not something that very frequently happening like here, right? So if let's say the frequency is very less, then you don't need to fix it immediately. You can still wait for for that fix to happen, because actually it is not blocking your testing all the time, right? It's blocking for some time only. Okay, so what I will say is, again, this kind of example, I'll say database ran out of space at some times, not all the times, right? So that's the reason it is called S1, sorry, P2 high, right? And the criticality because it is down, right? Because it's not working. Now, third one is basically critical severity, but what is medium? Medium means you can still wait for few days to fix it, right? So because you don't need to fix it immediately. So that kind of example, what happens is basically I'll tell you. So what happens, let's say there is one ETL job and which when you run it, it always fails at the first run, okay? But when you try to rerun it again, it will always pass, right? So that kind of defect, you can say it is medium, because you already know sure shot that it will fail for some time. Then there is no problem. You can just restart it and it will succeed, right? So that is called severe criticality, severe because it has failed at the first instant, but it is not blocking the testing because on rerun the job is succeeded and you are able to do the testing. Okay, so I'll say ETL job, ETL job succeeded succeeds after reruns. Okay, so this is something critical, okay, because it has failed, but it is always succeeding, so it's medium. Okay, the last one, what we can say is the critical. It is critical, which means something is really not working, but the priority is very low, guys. Okay, So what can be this kind of error? So let's say I have one field, okay? Let's say mm, date of, okay, time of time of sales, some product you are selling basically, time of sales, date and time of sales basically, right? Because you want to basically see that, okay? Date and time of sales. So it is basically, let's say, one second, guys. So let's say it is the format that I want, okay? Okay, I will say one second, guys. Date of sales, okay? This is the field, maybe, okay? I'm taking this field as a database field. So the format of this particular data type is time and date, right? Time and date both are coming. But what happens is when it loads, right? This is expected behavior, guys, okay? But when it loads into database, it only populates the date, okay? It only populates date is only populated, which means actually we are not populating the time, right? So in this case, what is happening, guys? So in this case, actually we are getting the data, but it is not in the correct format, right? We are only getting date, but yeah, I mean that is even, I mean, it's not bad, right? We are at least able to get the date. That is most concerning, right? So this can still wait, and you can wait for next print and all, because it is not something that blocking, right? Your testing and all. So that's the reason we can say that, this kind of bug when we get, that will be categorized as critical, because it is actually not giving the proper result, it is failing, but it doesn't have the high priority because it can fix later point of time. It's not breaking anything, right? So this is what the example of critical. Now let's move to the second one, guys. So second one is the severity is major. Major is basically one level down than your critical, right? Critical is basically it's so stopper kind of, right? It's stop everything. But here in the major, I think there are some functionality working, but not everything is working, right? So for example, if I take the example of major and here immediate, what kind of issue could be, right? So let's say I'll tell you. So not it's not blocked. Let's say I have a couple of fields, right? For example, I have a customer and I have source. In source, I have, let's say, customer, right? And it is having customer ID, customer name, okay? But when actually I am mapping it in my Informatica, it is actually mismapped. So customer name is mapped to the customer, ID in my target, and customer ID is mapped to the customer name in my target, right? Which is basically wrong, right? It's basically wrong, mismatched, right? So all the columns. So what is happening is job is not failing, right? The data is still loading, but only problem is there's problem with the wrong matching, right? So many field, I'll say many fields mismapped between source and target, right? So this is what the example of major severity and immediate priority, because see, if it is mapped to something wrongly, right? In source, let's say in source, I have customer ID, right? And customer name, all right? In my target, if I am actually putting it customer name and customer ID, what happen, guys? What will happen is customer ID will be written to the customer name and customer name will be written to customer ID, which is completely wrong, right? So this kind of things should be fixed immediately. Otherwise, you cannot progress. I mean, there is no failure of the job, but actually data that is populated in the target is wrong, right? So this is what we can take this example. Now, what is major and high? Major severity and high priority. Okay. So what will happen is high priority means okay, it doesn't have everything problem, it can still wait for some time. Okay, here it cannot wait because everything is wrong, right? But here let's say I have one field. Okay, one field is mismapped. So remaining, you can proceed with the remaining testing because rest of the fields are okay, right? In that case, it is major and high. Okay. Now the major severity and medium priority. So I just say medium priority. What happens basically? Here I will say few guys, not only one. I will say okay. I'll just take some example guys from the ETL only. Okay. So let's say few fields. Yeah. But not all, right? Which means you can still go with the testing, right? Go ahead with the testing. Now here, if you look at it, I will say medium. Medium means okay, there is a small, one maybe one issue, right? So I'll say one field. One field is wrongly, okay, not wrongly, guys. What I will say is one field is getting data truncation. Truncation. Why? Because one of the field is basically getting truncated. Okay, like some of the characters are getting truncated, but remaining fields you are still able to do. Here few fields are mismapped, which means almost 50% is blocked basically here. But here what is happening is only one field is having problem. Rest of the fields you can still go ahead and do the check and field level validation, etc. You can still do, right? And the last one is, guys, the measure, but what's that? The low. What is the low priority? I mean, you here you can fix it later point of time. You have to fix it anyways, right? Before you release it maybe into production. But here low doesn't ensure that you always have to fix it. Okay, you can live with that also in production as well, right? So for example, let's say I have some optional fields. Okay, optional fields in my target, right? In target, they doesn't really need to have value, right? Optional in target is not populated with null. Okay, is not populated with. Okay, is populated, yeah, is populated with nulls. Okay, what does it mean? Guys, it means that the optional fields are also supposed to have some data, but they are not actually populated with anything. But we are still okay with that, right? Because this is really a problem, right? But then we are still okay because these are optional field and we do not really worry too much about it. That's why it is low, right? Now we'll look at severity minor. Severity minor means, guys, it is not major, it is minor, means very, very small issue, but it is still, let's say there are 100 features and only one feature is not working out of it. That kind of scenario, it is minor, right? So when I say minor, what kind of, the example we can say, let's say minor S3 and immediate, yeah, priority is immediate. So what I can say is, let's say, yeah, um last character, okay, one second, last character of customer underscore name is truncated. Okay, it's getting truncated, guys. Okay, it is minor, but only last character of the customer name. It is because we need. This is not really, creating a lot of problem. It is very small issue, but it is having immediate fix. Why? Because character name is the customer name is very sensitive, and you cannot just truncate it. So that is the reason it is minor, but it needs immediate fix, guys. Okay. Now what we will see is we will look at the minor and high priority, minor severity and high priority. Okay, that kind of issue is okay, minor, right? it is impacting a bit, and but it is high, right? We need to fix it. Something kind of filtering, guys. Okay, let's say filtering of valid data. Okay, so let's say you want to put a filter condition, okay, wherein you want the customer uh, you do not want customer from Bangalore, okay. Rest every other places you need the customer, okay. So instead of Bangalore, you also put in Delhi, okay. So what will happen is basically some data filtration will happen, but it needs fix, okay. It needs the fix is high because we need to fix it, but it's a very minor issue, right? It's not something that it's only filtering. There is no issue with the data. It's just a filter logic, right? You just need to revisit it, okay, something like that. Now, minor and medium. Okay, this is something can we can live with it. I mean, it's not too much problem. Okay, because this is also minor and this is medium, right? So this kind of things, um, we can do one thing, guys. So let's say on your target table, right? Target table doesn't have index defined. Okay. When I say index defined, what index will do basically, it will help you to query the table, because index based searching is very fast, guys, right? So that's the reason. So let's say we do not have index defined on the target table, and we find that the query is taking cost of query, right? Cost of query is very high. In that case, we can actually define that as a minor and medium, okay? Because it is not breaking anything, it is just that it is a slow, right? Slow basically. Loading is happening slow, means job is slow, guys, right? Okay. Now, let's see minor and low. Minor is a severity and low is the priority. Okay. So what we can look at this, guys. Okay. So let's say I mean low means we don't need to fix it basically right now. Eh? Okay. So something, let's say customer address. Okay. Address's last character is truncated due to due due to inappropriate inappropriate appro, appropriate inappropriate data size. Okay, so this is the example, guys, for minor and low priority. Okay, hope you are able to understand it. Okay, now let me do one thing. All right, guys. Now the last one that we will look at is the low severity and immediate fix. So what kind of situation can be there, guys? I mean, see, this is very tricky and very important as well, right? See, I mean, severity and priority goes hand in hand, but severity is altogether different and priority is altogether different. I will tell you, right? But let's fill this particular, row, and then we will see that. So low severity and immediate priority. Okay, so what can happen? Which it is there is no breakage, there is nothing breaking, but only problem is there is some issue with some presentation or something. So for example, let's say I have a BI report that is generated, right, from the warehouse, generated from data warehouse. What will happen is on the report, let's say the report name is wrong. How it is wrong? Let's say what I'm expecting is I'm expecting it is Q1. Okay, Q1 growth, Q1 growth per region. Okay, per region. Every region, what is the growth of, it's not only Q1, it can be Q1, Q2, Q3, it's a quarter wise, right? So this is what I'm expecting basically, okay? But what is expected? Okay, let me put it expected. Now what is happening is basically when actually I am doing the testing, I'm finding that the report name is coming wrongly. How? Because it is not saying Q1, it is only say Q growth per region. So every time it is giving this particular actual, I will put it. So every time whenever I am seeing, right, it is not representing the quarter basically. It only says Q growth per region. So this is something really wrong. Correct? So okay guys, so this is what, because it needs immediate attention. Why? Because these reports are basically shared with the top management, and top management should be able to see it proper data. Here it is not proper data. It's saying only Q, right? It can be Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, but it's not saying that. It's only saying Q per growth. So this is something, UI related issue, and this is basically on your ETL BI reports that you are generating out of your data warehouse, right? Now, guys, what is the example of low severity and high priority? So low severity is, I'll tell you, okay? So low severity is, again I say, it doesn't impact anything, okay? Okay, so for example, let's say I have, okay, ambiguous data, ambiguous field name, okay, in target table, okay, target table, okay. So there is one table. So what I am expecting basically, okay, I'll put expected also, okay, expected. What I'm saying is, let's say I have a customer name. I am expecting this customer ID and sales ID, okay. These are the two columns that I'm expecting, okay. Expected, I'm saying that's it. Expected, okay, fine. Now, actual. What is actual? Actually, when I'm seeing it, I'm not finding. Okay, 1 second. Actual. Alright, this is actual. So, instead of this, what I'm getting is these two particular IDs here. So, instead of customer ID, I'm just getting ID in my target table. Okay, I'm expecting customer ID, but it is only ID. So which is very misleading, right? We don't know which ID they are talking about, right? That's the reason there might be multiple ID, customer ID, salesperson ID, etc. in that particular table, but this is saying only ID, which is really misleading, right? So that this is the example of low severity and high priority, guys. Okay. Why this is basically ambiguity, and there is no problem. Everything is loading properly, data and all. But in backend the data, this particular the column is not correct. Okay. Now we'll see that low severity and medium priority. Low severity and medium priority can be, I'll tell you, okay. It can be something like that, if let's say I am following certain naming convention, okay, naming convention. If I'm following it as part of my ETL testing, what I should get, the name is basically the customer underscore name, okay, something like this I should get basically in my target table. It should be there, but actually this is actual, right? This is expected, right? Expected. But actually what is happening is, when I am looking at the when I'm looking at what I'm getting is, actually I'll tell you here, 1 second. Actual is, instead of customer name underscore name, it is coming like customer name only. Okay, there is no underscore here. So this is something again problem, right? But this is something medium and low severity. There is no severity here, right? It's all low, right? It's not impacting. The only thing is we need to fix it before we release it, because it should not give the misleading information, right? I mean, it should not, it should all follow the naming conventions, guys, right? Now, the last one, guys, it is low and low. This is very important to understand, low and slow, right? So let's say one of the job, ETL job, okay? ETL job takes 2 hours usually, okay? 2 hours usually, which loads the batch data, right? Now what is happening is if it is taking 2.15, okay, 2.15 let's say, okay, 2.4. So actually, okay, I'll tell you actual. So if it is taking 2.1 hour, which means this is 0.15 hour is extra basically, right? If this is happening, then I can say it is a low severity and low priority. Okay, this is not blocking anything, and there is no urgent fix needed, etc. But this is still a bug, guys, because it should actually not take more than 2 hours. So it is taking more than two hours, but it is low severity and low priority, guys. Okay. So this is the example. I try to take some example, guys. Okay, so this you can always keep in your mind. But again, at the same time, your example might be different, and my examples are different. Okay, it is very possible. So don't worry that. But important here is to understand the concept, right? What is the importance of all these things, right? Severity and priority. Now, all right, guys. One more important question is, yeah. So, what is the question is basically who basically decides the severity and priority, okay? So, as we talked about it, this is part of your bug, right? Bug or defect. In bug and defect, this particular fields are there, right? Severity along with other fields, right? Severity and priority. They are the two fields which are mandatory, okay? Based on that only, the bug is categorized and prioritized for the testing, right? So what happens is this severity and priority. Severity is, as I said, that it is the impact or how bad the bug is, and the priority is how urgent we need to fix it, or the order of fixing the defect. Okay. So who normally decide the severity? As a tester, if you are actually testing it, you know that what all the functionality are getting impacted because of this particular bug, right? So uh, I will say that tester's responsibility, guys. Yeah, tester's responsibilities. Okay. Now, priority, guys. Priority is something that you need it to fix, right? But as a tester, you really don't know whether this particular functionality is really important for the business and business need it first or not, right? So you really don't know. You don't have any idea around it. So better you do not put anything in the priority. And priority is ideally, put by the product owner. Okay, product owner. So product owner, when the product owner basically um, is planning for the sprint, etc., that point of time, they already know which particular functionality is needed first and all. So similarly for defect, when there is a defect triage meeting. In that defect triage meeting, you can means as a tester, the testing people is also there and developer, right? In that meeting, we have to basically try to understand from the business point of view whether this particular bug is important or not. So priority is usually assigned by the product owner or the development lead or whoever have the more understanding around it, right? And sometime tester also can do it in consultation with the in consultation with product owners, etc., right? But normally this is not the job of tester standalone. Okay, tester can take the consultation from other team members, means product owners or product manager, etc. But then and based on that he can assign this priority. But it is not the whole so responsibility of assigning, because as a tester you don't know whether this need to be fixed immediately or it can wait for longer, right? So that's the reason there is a defect triage meeting, and in that defect triage meeting everything is decided, guys. Okay, so this is the last bit that I wanted to cover, guys. Who decide the severity and priority on a particular defect, right? So that's all for this video, and I hope that you are able to gain some insights around it. I think um, this is also good, and you have to try to, so when you are going for interview, right, you do not tell the severity, priority, bug, etc. from the point of view of the manual testing or any other kind of testing, you should always take the example of ETL testing, guys. Okay, so that's the reason I tried to cover. Okay, hopefully you are able to understand it, and I think that's all for this video, and I'll see you soon with the next video. Until then, happy learning. God bless you. Bye.